Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the final Schools Forum meeting of this academic year. We've got a packed agenda, so we're going to make a prompt start. And I'm going to ask you, Jane, have we got any apologies?
Yes, Chair, we've received apologies from Gary Morphus, Bernadette Caffrey and Jill Curtis, but we have Lizzie Papworth attending as Jill's representative.
Okay, that's great, thank you. Let's go through the minutes and actions from the previous meeting then. So I'm just going to scroll through them, and if people can shout out if you've got any issues with what's been recorded, please. So if we can take a look at page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. And page 6, which also contains our actions going into page 7. So, Jane, I didn't see any hands going up at that point. So can we agree that those are a true and accurate record of that meeting?
Can we have a quick show of hands to approve the minutes, please? Thank you, that's unanimous, thank you.
Right then, let's go through the actions. So number 1 was further detailed feedback regarding the Delivering Better Value programme, and that would be provided at the next forum meeting.
It's on the agenda today. Yeah.
Catherine Pullen and the other early years managers to meet and collate the budget data for discussions at the next Schools Forum meeting. Catherine?
Yes, that's been done. I actually put it as a report that came out with a pre-reading pack. I don't know if everybody's seen it.
Thank you. Item 3, action 3, details of the relevant school staff member to attend the Parent Carer Voice Collaborative Group meeting in June to be sent to the clerk. So Jane, have you got anything on that?
I didn't actually receive any details, but I'm assuming school staff did attend the Parent Carer Voice Collaborative Group meeting.
What any RCC colleagues present at that meeting that can provide us with any information?
I can find out, Chair, and make a note in the minutes.
Okay. And action 4 was for Sharon Milner to arrange a meeting of the Rutland head teachers cohort for them to provide feedback regarding multi-agency guidance.
I haven't managed to do that, Ben, this chair this far.
Okay. Sharon, do you think that is an action that we need to carry over?
Yes, I think it would be a good idea. I mean, I can have a go. We do still have 4 weeks left, so I'm happy to give it a go in the next 4 weeks.
Okay, and then if you could let myself and Jane know how you get on in that time period, and then if we need somebody else to carry that over into the new academic year,
okay,
we can coordinate that.
Thank you.
All right then. So then let's move on to item 3, which is our finance update. We've got 15 minutes scheduled for this, and this is going to be from Andrew. So over to you, sir.
Apologies for not submitting a report due to the tight timelines around the end of the financial year. I haven't been able to pull one together. I can give a brief verbal update as to where we are on the outturn position for 2023-24. So overall, we ended up in a deficit position of 246,000 on the overall dedicated schools grant block. That was largely, entirely down to the deficit position on the high needs block, which we know has been under pressure throughout the whole of the financial year and has been reported as such. The end position was more favourable than what we envisaged. So that's a positive. All other blocks were pretty much on budget. So overall, it was a good position. So that gives a total deficit on the dedicated schools grant at this moment in time of 1.3 million in total. So it is a large sum and it does keep on growing. Obviously, I know we've got the Delivering Better Value programme on the agenda, and I won't go into too much on the recovery plan. So there are a couple of things that we still need to watch out for, and we haven't had confirmed positions yet in relation to the early years block. The main reason is for that is that the funding is confirmed in July. So once we have the July data, we will then know exactly the position on the early years block. I expect there to be a split, a change in allocation between 3 and 4 year old funding and 2 year old funding, because we know that our numbers have moved significantly within those areas. But overall, we should still be within the overall allocation. So there shouldn't be any issues. So that's it in relation to 21-20 into 22-23. There isn't really any early updates on 23-24. There will be similar messages to what we've had in the past around high needs block potential to be overspending. That's clearly where the risk is going to lie, and it will continue to lie. We got notification today around the additional early years grant, but I've not had a chance to digest what it said and haven't had a chance to discuss with colleagues exactly how we're going to distribute that to providers. So I'm sure the early years representative here is sat there waiting for information on that. But we got it today, so I will be working with my education colleagues to feed that through, and I'll hope to get information out to you as soon as I possibly can on that, and when we've got our final allocation.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Does that conclude everything you wanted to cover?
Yes, it does, yeah.
Can I just open up the opportunity for anybody to ask Andrew questions by either waving at me or putting your hand up using the Teams function, Zoom function?
I mean, I don't know whether I should say this. I'm not sure, Chair, whether there's any value in it, but I'll say it for the record on behalf of schools and education settings everywhere. We're in an absolutely hopeless position because we are not able to plan, because we do not know what the outcome of the current non-negotiations are on pay awards, and therefore we do not know also how much money will we receive to fund those pay awards, should or if they come in whatever form. So making planning beyond the next two or 3 weeks is practically hopeless. It's extremely difficult for people to make any sensible plans at this stage.
Thanks, Carl. I think you just voiced the frustration that everyone working in schools probably has. Yeah, challenging situation for us all. I'm not sure we're going to resolve it in today's meeting, are we? But well worth making the point. Okay, I'm just going to give one more opportunity for anybody to ask Andrew questions before we move on. Right, okay, let's move to item 4 then, learning and skills, fees and charges for 2023-24. This report from Jill, but in Jill's absence, Lizzie, is that going to be you?
Yes, that will be me.
Okay.
So you should have received the agenda item reports, and this covers fees and charges for admissions. So you will see the context and the proposed charges for 23-24. And then below that, you will see moderation and monitoring of Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. We're proposing there to keep the fees the same while we undergo a review of monitoring and moderation. And that is due to obviously Key Stage 1 being removed. We will not be moderating Key Stage 1 next year. And also we've had a reduction in the amount of schools that we have to moderate and monitor. So we want to do a complete review of the spending on charges for that and look at local areas to see how much they charge and to check the finances coming in and going out match. So that's an item for decision. Thank you, Ben.
Okay, before we take a decision on that, can I just give everybody the opportunity to ask any questions or make any comments. Okay then, Jane, if you could just ask for a vote, please, if you could coordinate that.
Yep, all those in favour, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thank you. Do we have any not in favour? Any abstentions? That is all approved, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Lizzie, for delivering that on Jill's behalf. That takes us on to item 5 then, which is the SEND recovery plan. And this is Louise. We have 10 minutes scheduled for you, Louise.
Thank you very much. Jane, are you able to share the presentation that I literally sent to you a few minutes ago? Or do you need me to do that? I just can't see everybody if that's happening. I can see her looking. Okay, I'll make a start. SEND recovery plan. I think I'm going to bring together all of the kind of key strands of work together, really, to talk about that, because as we've moved through doing the SEND recovery plan, what we've identified is that there's a number of things coming together, which is really, really helpful in terms of trying to change practice and to ensure that children receive their education in Rutland, which is kind of the key driver. Oh, excuse me a moment. Right, obviously I haven't spoken enough today. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jane. You can move straight onto the first slide, thanks. So I wanted to just flesh out, we've got £1 million investment potential. We're applying for this DFE grant at the moment. And the process we've been through, which you'll have heard me talk about in the January and March meetings, is that we've had a significant amount of analysis done, both on data from cohorts of children who've passed through our education, health and care plan and our systems, between the ranges of 2017 and 2021. So it doesn't necessarily reflect what we're seeing now as part of school support partnership developments, etc. But we've looked in detail at that group of children, working on, where they made transitions previously, and what their trajectory has been, where they've, if you like, landed in our SEND systems, if you want to put it that way, in terms of their meeting their educational needs, and how that feels, whether that felt like the right thing when we reviewed it, and that review process that we've undertaken, which has been incredibly detailed in the last 6 weeks or so, has included looking at children's journeys through our system, thinking about whether or not they're in what you might call their ideal placement, although it's not a great word, but a placement which could have met their needs if we'd identified them early enough in the process, let's say that. We've worked with 51 parents and carers through that process. 48 education providers have been involved in that process. 37 children and young people's situations have been looked at, and there have been 29 reviewers go through that process. There have been listening forums with SENCOs, with children, young people, with parents, and we've looked at 10,000 data points during that process, which doesn't sound, it doesn't mean very much, but what it means at the end of it is we have some themes which have perhaps helped us understand better that the work we've done already has had an impact, which is really great to know, but also where we need to go next with improvements, with changes that we want to make in our SEND system. So just back to this slide. So we've got the potential to apply for a grant of £1 million. We are doing that now as I speak. Literally in the next 3 weeks, that grant application will go into the DFE. We've been supported by Newton Europe, who are the consultants who've been engaged, and SIPFA, who've been engaged to do that work with us. And it's been a very the process for doing this has been completely set. We haven't deviated at all from how the other 55 authorities have gone through this process. We've done it just as we've been asked to. the way that so the action plan that goes alongside that, so what we then do if we're successful in attaining that £1 million against the priorities that I'm going to flesh out for you a little bit more in a minute, is that we have to have a really, really tight action plan, really, really tight and scaled action plan. There'll be quarterly review of that through our DSG management plan. So Andrew will be heavily involved in doing that as well alongside the team. And we need to show that we'll have returned the investment over 5 years. So you've heard that overspend amount, 1.3 million currently. We need to show how we're turning the curve on that. And I think Andrew and I can already see that we have already made ground on that, because there have been rising numbers of EHCPs, and the route, if you like, those EHCPs has changed. So whereas before we were seeing lots of EHCPs, if you like, there were school supported applications, and now we're seeing many, many more of those being parent requests. So there's stuff we need to do in our system to create assurance, I think, but it means that schools are perhaps feeling more confident to support inclusion, which is what we were all about at the beginning of doing the SEND recovery plan process. We will need to iterate that recovery plan. I think we're going to fall in line with the government's wording, which is about improvement planning. So we'll change it over the course of the summer while we're thinking about what that improvement plan needs to look like, so that it kind of falls in line with that SEND and AP improvement plan direction of travel, the paper that has just recently been the policy paper that underpins this work. And we want to make sure we're obviously in refreshing the inclusion strategy. We did it just after the last SEND inspection, and we've obviously just had a recent area SEND inspection, which we're expecting the official outcome for that shortly. I think it's due to be published in the next few weeks. And we want to take account of the learning from that, of course. We will want to adapt the governance, I think, and the oversight for the next phase of delivery. At the moment, we've been doing that pretty much through this forum and through our SEND programme board at the county council, at the local authority, and also through Children and Young People's Partnership. But I think some of the changes, the contextual changes of our strategy arrangements, mean that we probably need to do that in a different way going forward. So look to that. We definitely have seen massive benefit from the parent collaboration and engagement group, and we want to extend that work and children parental involvement in that planning and delivery as we move on. Right, next slide. So what have we found as we've been going through this? We've got emerging themes from that analysis, which are leading us towards the sorts of things that we might want to add in to our arrangements. Any of our projects, so as I've alluded to, and it's been fascinating actually meeting with some of the other local authorities as we've been doing, myself, Andrew and Helen Chester, heading down to Swindon a few times this year to reflect, if you like, on what Rutland has been doing, which many local authorities have either not got ahead of or really haven't had the investment that Schools Forum have put into it. We can really see that we've made an impact through doing that, so that's really encouraging. But it also means that we have to think really carefully about what the projects are that we're going to add into the mix, because we can't do everything. We're a tiny authority, we have limited capacity, and we have a very, very, very tight timeline to deliver it. So you can see there from that slide, the second bullet down, as soon as we know we have the funding, which we're expecting to be in early September, we have to have all of that spent, and it's not just committed, it has to be spent by March 25, and there will be clawback if we don't. So we need to do that really carefully. So it's manageable and isn't overwhelming, and is spent really effectively alongside the things we know have been working already and we want to invest in. And it's worth just saying this, the projects must be new, they have to add quantifiably. You can't just do more of one. You can do more of something, but you need to demonstrate the impact that particular bit is going to have. So we're thinking really carefully how we add without overwhelming. So the areas we need to focus on are, we need to get better at increasing the number of children whose needs are met as they're emerging at the earliest possible stage, potentially rather than going down the EHCP process. We can see this is already happening, even though EHCPs are increasing. That's partly the COVID factor, and it's partly a parental confidence thing, we think. But we can see we are having that impact, which is really, really encouraging, I think, for Schools Forum's investment. And we need to avoid specialist placements where we can. So we want to use all the resources we have as effectively and smartly as we can in Rutland to make sure we can develop the resources we need in schools to meet children's needs. And some of that's about practice change, and some of it's about space. And I'm going to talk more to that in a slides. I think there's only one more slide after this. So alongside that, we think we need to do something around space and buildings. We know that particularly at primary, schools have been saying for a while, actually, if we just did, if we could tweak that, if we could do a little bit of this, that might be a way forward. So that's what we want to do. And we want to do that from the autumn to the spring next year. And there'll be a process for doing that, which I'll share with you a little bit more in a moment. And I think, that whole creating parental confidence in inclusion locally is an area that we want to focus on. So the collaboration and engagement group that we've had for the last year, which has really made ground in tangible pieces of work like creating the SEND Promise and helping parents to understand what the School Support Partnership is doing and helping them to find things on the local offer. Share that better communication and better understanding of our graduated response and what's available in terms of ordinarily available provision. More work to be done there, but they're the areas we want to put energy into. And I can see there being an additional 4 groups based on the feedback we had from parents in April at our Working Together group. 4 additional task groups will be set up in very specific areas, one of which is around early years pathway planning, and 3 other areas, which I'm sure we'll talk about at a later stage, but now's the time to focus on these things. Thank you, Jane. Could you pass on to the next one? Thank you. Oh gosh, that's in not very good. That was in clear. It's obviously not translated very well, but it's not very easy to see. So alongside this £1 million revenue funding, which comes through the DBV funding, there is also £1 million, or just a tiny bit over £1 million available still in our capital funding. Now, you'll know that we've spent money so far in terms of capital in developing the resource provision at UCC and the Mainstream Plus, and the nurture arrangements that we have in the Nest and some of the outreach support. But we want to develop that nurturing environment work with 2 other projects, 2 main projects in primary. One around creating some Mainstream Plus type small class spaces in up to, say, 3 primary schools over the autumn and spring and into summer next year. So we'll be asking people to express an interest for that when we've briefed you properly on what it is, the rationale is for that, really. And we want to work with those providers those potential providers to do that in the autumn. And then in addition to that, creating those nurturing environments. This will be a small grant, 3,000 to 6,000, this particular section. And we want to do that as a sort of very straightforward form. And we'll be working really closely with our nurture outreach to procure those. So thinking of, we'll be briefing that in through our nurture outreach facility. So that's what it is. Alongside those Mainstream Plus primary class spaces, there will obviously be resourcing. They need to be, a class base in effect with the teacher, etc., etc. So whatever needs to go alongside that, and we'll be looking to our existing provision that's already doing great resource provision or whatever to kind of help those schools to be part of a strong inclusion practice as we move forward. And then running just slightly behind that, we're thinking about probably one secondary site for alternative provision. So thinking about what could alternative provision, short-term interventions look like, so that we're not using some of the high cost, maybe unregulated stuff that we're using at the moment to support children. Not to say that it's not working really well, but we would like that funding to be remaining in our education system, and also helping children to be alongside their peers positively. Okay, I don't think there are any more slides. Am I right? Yes. I hope I've stuck to my 10 minutes, but are there questions?
Any questions for Louise? Carl?
I'm just going to unmute. Thank you, Louise. On the secondary alternative provision proposed site, you didn't put a timeline on when that might be implemented. So have you got any thoughts on that?
Yes, it's the same sort of timeline, but it's running just slightly behind. So we'd expect an expression of interest to be in the autumn this year. Yeah, so that's what we're looking at for that. But we need to be really, I'm wanting to manage everybody's expectations in a sense, because there's just £1 million to do all of those different things. So we need to have realistic expectations around what we're going to achieve and whether all of those are possible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Louise, in your presentation, you mentioned there was £1 million left over in capital, but then you also mentioned £1 million in revenue.
That's right. They're separate things, but they all of them are I think the intention we would all want is that we utilize that funding, all of that funding, to move this whole piece of work along, to ensure that we have confidence in inclusion. If we wanted to give it a headline, that's what it would be. And everything will be, and all our energy will be in that area, as part of our next, as it were, SEND recovery plan. And that's how we've used the funding so far. You know, it's all been focused on gaps that we can see where children are perhaps falling through the net, or we can do the education better in Rutland, rather than passporting that money out to an independent school. Or, you know, we want that funding to come into our schools and to resource our schools. That's what we've been about.
So the revenue funding that is currently being bid for, that you've not had a decision on yet, that's a time-bound one-off.
Yeah, it is. It is. But as with other areas of work we've done, when we've developed new educational arrangements, let's put it that way, Schools Forum have been so far supportive in seeing the investor save, seeing that if we do this, it's going to save us more money than if we do that. And I would expect everything we're planning at the moment is with the mind that this is about sustainability, and it has an impact on that high needs budget pressure.
Okay, that's great. Just wanted to clarify. Dawn, hand up.
Yeah, it was just to add to what Louise was saying. So in terms of as part of the implementation plan and bid, if you like, we are building in a sustainability plan as well, so that because it is time bound and one-off, if you like, revenue, particularly the revenue is the important bit, it's still one-off funding. We are building in as part of our bid, and we have to, obviously, a sustainability plan post 2 years time, 2025. So and I think that's going to be, you know, certainly from a Schools Forum point of view, I'm sure you'll be really wanting to really kind of help shape what that looks like, and the sustainability element in particular.
Thank you, Dawn. Louise, you had
Yeah, so just to come back in on that, you know, if you think about how we've gone about developing all of the what might be thought of as services as part of the SEND recovery plan so far, they've all been commissioned for that very reason, which is if at any stage Schools Forum withdrew its desire to continue on this particular track or this particular path, they're much more flexible to change and remove. And I can imagine there will be similar considerations as we go forward. And I should say, this is probably my last Schools Forum, actually, because I'm leaving in September. But passing it, thankfully, I now can say, passing it across to another colleague who's well steeped in Rutland, and will be taking over this work, and with more time than I've had as well. Yeah, Helen Chester will be taking over that role.
Okay, just going to look around the group and see is there any more hands up for comments or questions on that item. Right, well, Louise, last school forum meeting for you. Just wanted to thank you on behalf of the group for all the excellent work that you've done over the, I don't know how many years it is now, 5 years? Yeah, 5 years. So thank you.
Thanks for having such a brilliant project. It's miles ahead of what's going on in other authorities. So well done, Rutland.
Rutland indeed. So I think I'm now going to pass on to Catherine and Joe, and it's also Catherine's last school forum meeting, I believe. So
it is indeed.
I'll thank you on behalf of the group, Catherine, for the work that you've done.
Thank you.
Your sector, and we wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much.
And I'll let you get on with it. So the next item is yours, and it's scheduled for 5 minutes.
It is. As requested, I have met with the earlier sector, with managers, with childminders, with business owners. I did put a report together, which I put in the pre-reading pack. I hope you've all had the opportunity to read it. It does go into some depth on the issues raised and points that we'd like for consideration. Obviously based around finance and funding. I was hoping to have more information from Andrew, but I appreciate, Andrew, that you've only just got the figures yourself today. I would like to thank Louise for touching on the SEND, because again, that is a concern for us as more and more children with SEND are coming through to us, and also impacts on our budgets and things. And like has always already been raised with the schools, it's very, very difficult for the sector to plan ahead when we don't know what money we've got to plan with. We are in absolute dire straits regards staffing and finances as it is. So hopefully you've read the report, and I'm going to use this time to open it for any questions.
Okay, open that up to the group then. Anyone got questions for Catherine?
No. Don't know if Joe would like to add anything to what I've just said. Or no.
I don't think there's anything else to say, Catherine, just that it's really continues to be an extremely hard time. And I think come April 2024, when they decide that 2-year-olds get funding, it's going to then
have a massive impact.
Possibly get worse.
Yeah, I think that's reflected by everybody, Joe. So I'd like to thank you for reading the report if you have, and that's where we're at.
Okay, Catherine, well, thank you for consulting with everybody and pulling their views together into that report.
You're welcome.
Okay then, item 7 is pupil place planning, and that would have been Jill, so I'm assuming that's Lizzie.
Yes, thank you.
And Lizzie, we have 5 minutes scheduled for that.
Thank you. So you should have received the report already from Jill, the update on admissions rounds for September 2023, and these are the figures as of 1st of June. So I just want to highlight a couple of bits in the report. The first one being that first preference offers to Rutland residents has increased this year for secondary schools. So that now stands at 98.3% instead of 97% from last year. So that means that more children receive their first offer. So that's fantastic. And just to highlight, we are oversubscribed with children on the waiting list at Catmus College and at UCC. Caston College at this point did have places available. Also just highlighting how many children we have applying from out of county. So those figures remain stable. They haven't increased again this year. So Caston College, same percentages. Catmus College seen a little bit of a dip there, and Uppingham College a tiny bit of a dip. So they are stable. Moving on to primary school admissions, the first preference offers to Rutland residents, that has increased as well this year. So that is now 98.4% of children being offered their first place. That's an increase from 95.5% last year. And they're the only parts I want to highlight in the report, and if there's any questions.
open that out to the group then for questions to Lizzie. No? Okay, well, thank you very much. That was quicker than 5 minutes. Right then. Item number 8, Constitution and Rules of Conduct. It's going to be Jill, so it's going to be Lizzie.
Yeah, I think this is me again. This is just to highlight the annual review of the Schools Forum Constitution and Rules of Conduct for 23 to 24. So you would have received within your pack the draft for review for this year. And I'm just going to be taking any comments or recommendations for the further review on Jill's behalf and take those back to her. Following 2022 review, the only amendment in this version is the school population data on page 5. And also there has been one maintained school converted to academy status since the last review of the Constitution. So really just taking any comments or recommendations back to Jill, please.
Okay, anyone in the group want to make comments or ask questions about that? No? Okay, thank you, Lizzie. Item 9, Delivering Better Value Programme. Dawn, you have 10 minutes.
Sorry, Chair, you've missed an item.
Oh my goodness, basket.
The annual review of Schools Forum membership.
Ah, 8A.
I won't take it personally.
Sponsors badge for you, Jane. Right, okay, so we need to review the membership of the Schools Forum and agree any actions required. So, are we?
Jill, sorry, Chair, Jill Curtis very kindly submitted this report. We have vacancies at the moment regarding governor representatives. We now have a post-16 provision representative, Mr. Teasel, that's joining us from Harrington. Unfortunately, but what has she asked? Catherine, yes, this is Catherine's last meeting, but I'm sure Catherine will notify me as soon as she finds out who her replacement will be.
Yes, Jane, I'll do that.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you.
And
So you probably also know at this point that it's Sharon's last meeting as well.
It is, yes. And Sharon's last meeting as well. So yeah, it depends. Basically what Jill would like everyone to ask: does the Schools Forum agree that the current membership arrangements are balanced and continue to reflect the education sector in Rutland, or do we need a review of the membership? Over to you.
So has anyone got any issues with how it is currently structured? Nope. Okay, so we'll take that as the group agreeing that we continue as we are and we try and fill those vacancies. Jane, what will be the process for that?
Thank you, Chair. What I'll do is I will write to all schools asking for representatives, especially from the governors, and for.
Would it be helpful if I come in here?
Yeah, sure.
So just in terms of just conscious of the new academic year, obviously nearly upon us, and with Sharon leaving as well, we do need to fill the vacancy for both a governor representative, but also another representative from the academy sector. Obviously, because Sharon is one of the representatives of the academy sector. And that, so both of those vacancies do need to be filled before the next Schools Forum. So I think what would be helpful is probably if members of the school forum are kind of proactive within your own sectors. Jane will write out, obviously, to all schools advising and asking for nominations, but I think the ask would also be that there's current members of the school forum are proactive in trying to encourage representatives to come forward.
I think we can do that, Dawn. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to say thank you to Sharon for all the excellent work you've completed on behalf of the Schools Forum, children and young people in Rutland, for the time that you've been involved, and we wish you all the very best for the future.
Thank you very much. Can I just say it has been a pleasure, and I'm going to miss the people. I've met some amazing people to work with, and what it's worth, I think the children in Rutland get a great deal. So thank you, and yeah, I'm sure it'll go on to greater things. So yeah.
Thank you, Sharon. Okay then, now we can move on to item 9, delivering better value. So Dawn, back to you.
Well, Ben, you'll be very pleased to hear that we've actually done it as part of Louise's presentation. So that was the Delivering Better Value programme kind of update, really. So I'm giving you back 10 minutes, unless there was any other questions that have occurred to people.
Well, as long as nobody else has got any questions or queries about what was presented earlier by Louise, then I propose that we move on. Right, work plan for next academic year. Are we all happy with how that schedule looks in the document pack? Following the same pattern as we traditionally have done. Any comments or questions? Jane, is there anything you need to draw to our attention?
Just one, the Nurture Hub and Practice update. Louise, I will change that to read Helen Chester, and I'll ping her an email just to give us some advance notice.
Yeah, I'll be covering it as part of my handover, Jane, but yeah, it's going to be really good timing. So thank you.
Okay, Jane, happy with that? Happy to move on?
Yeah, unless anybody's got any suggestions they'd like to add to the work plan, then if you just email Democratic Services, we'll help you out. That's fine.
Excellent, thank you. Right.
Sorry, I was on mute. It's always helpful. I will, as we referenced earlier, the area send inspection report will be published, she says, by the end of July. That's the expectation. So it will get circulated, but it might be worth putting on an update on kind of, next steps for the next schools forum, if people think that would be helpful. I think it probably would be.
Yeah, I think that can definitely be
yeah,
our September meeting. Jane's nodding, so I'm assuming that's okay. We can move on. Right, any other urgent business? Jane, you said to me at the start of the meeting that you hadn't had any. Just going to give the group the opportunity to...
I have not been notified of any urgent business.
I have one item that I'd like to raise, and of course this is not the forum to be really discussing individual school issues, but I think it's an issue that affects many schools, not all schools in Rutland, but I think some people will be affected by this, and I just wanted to gauge the group's thoughts on it, really. Obviously, UCC serves children from Rutland and Northamptonshire and Leicestershire. And we have found it increasingly difficult to basically get hold of the money that should be following the children who have education healthcare plans from out of county. So very difficult to liaise with Northamptonshire, almost impossible to get answers out of Leicestershire. And you know, from our personal perspective, we are owed over £11,000 from Leicestershire for, you know, children that we've got placed in our school that they haven't paid the high needs funding for. And we're becoming increasingly frustrated by the lack of communication and our inability to basically provide the funding for the services that those children are getting. And I just wanted to gauge opinions from elsewhere in the group, other people having similar difficulties. And if there is an appetite for a joint letter to be written on behalf of Rutland Schools Forum to neighbouring authorities, I would be happy to coordinate that. And I can see Stuart's hand's gone up straight away. So Stuart and then Catherine.
Yeah, we're in a similar boat, Ben. I think we've got the money out of them, but the communication from Leicestershire in particular and is a real challenge for us. We get late meet need letters. They don't really consult properly, and it's not great. Rutland is by far better for what that's worth.
Yep, I completely concur with that. Catherine? Yes,
we've been chasing money from Northamptonshire for 7 months. I've literally just received it. As an early years provider, to be out of pocket for 7 months for a child that we took on board from them, it was just unacceptable. But I have now got a contact there if anybody else wants it.
Thank you, Catherine. I think that would be really helpful. And Stuart, if you would be able to share with Jane the contact that you've used at Leicestershire to chase down the money.
Will do.
That would be really, really helpful. Any colleagues from RCC able to advise us people in schools about what we could do to try and improve this situation?
My view would be I think your plan to formally write as Schools Forum, I think is the right one, absolutely. And I think writing as the chair, but on behalf of Schools Forum is really important. I think in terms of who to address it to, I would suggest what your equivalent in both, I'm assuming it's West and North Northamptonshire. It's 2 local authorities that you'll have to write to because they're 2 separate, and I think they probably both have a separate Schools Forum each. But I'm sure Jane and in Democratic Services could probably check that for you and check, and same, and obviously Leicestershire's got their own Schools Forum. So and also, so I would write to those chairs and also to the Section 151 officers in those local authorities. So the same letter, copy it to both, raising the concerns. And I think that's probably the best points of contact, rather than, I think going to the top is better than trying to identify kind of, you know, a head of Send Finance is probably not the right person at this on behalf of Schools Forum.
Dawn, did you suggest that we should write to the Schools Forum chairs of those local authorities because they need to be made aware that?
Yeah, I think right to the Section 151 officers, which are the head of directors of finance, basically, in those local authorities, and CC in the Schools Forum chairs. I don't know who they are in those, but I'm sure Democratic Services could probably reach out and sort that out.
That would be really helpful, and I
yeah,
Jane affirming that that's something that she could do. Okay, so what I plan to do then, if everyone's happy with this, is to write a letter over the next couple of weeks that I'll circulate to make sure everyone's happy with the content, because if I'm writing on behalf of Schools Forum, then I will want your feedback, and then Jane can advise me the best places for that to be delivered to. Right, okay, thank you. Next meeting dates then. We've got Thursday the 5th of October, Thursday the 1st of February, and Thursday the 9th of May. This year we did host one, and it was the first one of the year, was it not, in person? But I can see on the agenda pack that we've got that they're all scheduled for Zoom. Was there a reason for that, Jane?
No, because they are public meetings, they are automatically set up for Zoom. If you would like one of the meetings to be held in person, please let me know and I will check if the council chamber is free and I can let everybody know.
I think the rationale that we used this year was that we wanted the meetings that had significant decision making to be face to face, and then we kept the two towards the end as Zoom.
Yeah, I'm just checking the forum's work plan. The meeting on October actually has 3 items that will require a decision. So I can easily check if the council chamber is free and we can hold the meeting in there if you wish.
What did the group think about that? Are we happy to meet in person for that meeting in October? Or has anyone got strong views against it?
Oh.
Okay, so we'll go for an in-person meeting in October, then Jane, and Zoom for the other 2.
I will check and confirm.
Thank you. Right, and I think that concludes everything then. We've covered all the agenda items. So I'm going to thank you all for your time and your contributions today. Wish you all the very best for the rest of the academic year. And thank you to Sharon, Catherine and Louise. Your final meeting. Hope it's been a good one. And I'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks all.
Thank you, Chair. Meeting closed at 16:52.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.